What up, guys? James from Bull Pros here. Joe Hortiz and Chad Alexander met with the media talking about the NFL draft coming up and also their insights on the whole free agency pool that they ended up picking up this year. So a lot of really good points, tons of good insight about what the heck we're going to expect for this draft for 2025. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the key points that I picked up about that interview. And let's go ahead and get into it, guys. Bull Bros, let's go. Bull Bros! All right, guys. Once again, appreciate all the love and support. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel if you're not. We appreciate all the love and support. Also, want to hear about your thoughts about that interview with Joe Hortiz and Chad Alexander in the comments below. A lot of really good insight on it, guys. Bottom line, Joe Hortiz, Chad Alexander, they feel good about drafting today and ready to go on this draft. I know there's so many good players in this draft, and I think there's a lot of really good positions that could really help out the Chargers for a Super Bowl run. Let's go. And I think that's bottom line. It's really cool to be able to hear what their thoughts are on positions, players, philosophies, ideas of why they draft players and everything too. One thing that I think was interesting, and I've always thought about this, you got the Senior Bowl, you got East-West Shrine Game, you got all these different various bowls, hula bowls, all these different things. How do they manage those interviews, and what are the rules behind it? Well, he did talk about that. You have about 45 interviews at the Senior Bowl. That's a whole heck of a lot of interviews, meeting with a lot of guys. And he did talk about kind of, sometimes it's not about like having a full interview with them. Maybe it's just more about shaking a hand, saying hello, just get a couple quick questions with them, just to see who they are as a person. Because, obviously you think about it. We, even as fans, we could watch video about players, say, man, on film, this guy looks phenomenal. Like, this guy looked like he'd be a home run player for us, but maybe personality-wise does not fit the culture. And that's what a GM should be doing, trying to find guys that are culture fits for this team and personalities that could fit well in the locker room. You do not want a disruptor all around to disrupt your system, your idea of a team. And that's the thing. We have a system in place, and these guys will choose very, very much on every single level of how they get graded, down to their character too. I will say, man, it's a breath of fresh air feeling like you have a system in place. You have adults in the room like we've talked about for many years now with Joe Hortiz, Chad Alexander, Jim Harbaugh, Jesse Minter. We got guys that know what they are doing, and you got to love seeing that, guys. You got to love that. In Jim Harbaugh, we trust. Joe Hortiz, we trust. Chad Alexander, I think, is a bigger part of this piece, in my opinion, too, in a lot of different ways. One other thing, too, he did bring up kind of about last year, top 30 interviews. They met with Joe Alt at the Senior Bowl, got intel from Chris O'Leary, who was a safety coach that came from Notre Dame that was working, well, at least on the same team with Joe Alt at Notre Dame in 2023, obviously became the safety coach for us in 2024. He leans on players for intel and coaches to be able to get an understanding about these players. If they've had time with them or worked with them, or if they've, somewhere or another know who he is as a player, they will lean on those coaches and players all the time. You got to love to see that. You got to love that they are looking at any which way to be able to get resources, to get an understanding of how to get more information about these players. Joe Hortiz did talk a lot about that. He thinks his team is ready to go right now. These 10 picks that they do have in front of them are picks that they can just add more talent to the pool. And, like I said on the Sunday, live, bottom line, I feel like we got a great set of players right now. We did a phenomenal job of getting talent to add to this team already. These are 10 luxury picks, in my opinion. These are picks that you could basically add, more and more talent for the long term. Like, I really, truly feel that these 10 players will be the long-term type players for this team. I think that's really the whole idea. Think about the free agency. We didn't sign Najee Harris to a multi-year deal. We got him to a one-year deal. Reason why? Well, let's see what he could do. Let's see what he could produce for us this year. Let's see what he could do for us if he's going to be a system fit. I think it's kind of like, hey, let's try you out. If you work out, we might try to put you to a longer-term contract. J.K. Dobbins last year, I still think that we should go after him. But once again, it's a very, very deep running back class this year. You could go out there and possibly get a long-term guy for less money now too. So either which way, I think there's a lot of really, really good players that we could add on this team for the next, 3 to 4 years, basically through this draft. So keep an eye on it. I think this is an interesting point that Joe Ortiz brought up. Let the board come to you. And really, bottom line, think about that. Let the board come to you. There is a lot that this board can develop for you for players. There's a lot that basically, hey, we're going to choose the best player available for you. The board will guide to your graded players that you have on your board. If you've done a great job of grading out players to say, for instance, you got your list of players, not by position, but list by grades, and you just let the board come to you. You just let whoever it is, whatever position it is, cornerback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, whomever it is, the board will just develop it for you. Now, he did have some conversation about, hey, have you had calls about pick 22? Well, sure, you have, but it's not a whole heck of a lot in comparison to pick 5. I mean, I think really they just kind of call up teams to say, hey, what are you thinking about at your pick? Are you thinking about trading back? Are you thinking about trading forward? Kind of things like that. That's pretty standard, and that's what a GM should be doing. Get an understanding of what other teams are doing, because then you can kind of figure out, hey, we got a great shot with this guy, and we don't really need to potentially go after him, or at least try to do a trade up to get to that guy. So bottom line, it's great to see that. Joe Ortiz, Chad Alexander, they all got a very, very good idea of what to do. I thought it was interesting in the interview too. He kind of talked about Chad Alexander being the angel on his shoulder, kind of telling him and reminding Joe Ortiz, hey, you remember about this guy or that guy or whatnot. He does a good job of reminding Joe Ortiz of picks of players and why that they might not pick that player because this reason, or why they might pick that player. So big time. It's big to be able to have an assistant GM who could kind of be that angel on his shoulder in a sense. It was an interesting scenario that one of the media members brought up about, hey, look, if you come up with 2 players that you really like at your pick, what do you do? And he said, hey, it comes down to character. You got a system in place. You want to have high character guys that could be added to this team, guys that could bring a lot more juice to this team, but be a system fit. We have a system in place now, guys, and I feel like we haven't had a system for a very long period of time. And now we got basically a system in place that we want these specific type guys, and character is everything for them. Now, he did say, hey, if it's 2 players you really like and character's not a problem, it's a coin flip. Now, I don't think it's necessarily that. I think it becomes a position of need at that point. So, but he did also bring up Tarheeb Still and Cam Hart. Drafting 2 cornerbacks in one round is kind of a wild idea, and I was almost back-to-back picks. But guess what? He said, hey, look, you might not need him now, but you'll probably need him down the road. And, maybe 2 weeks later, there's an injury that happens and you need him to basically fulfill a position. Hey, be ready. Don't go out there and just not have enough of one player, because once again, NFL season is very long. Players get injured, players get hurt. You need to have depth, and cornerback is a position of need always for every team. And Joe Ortiz has talked about that. That's always a position of need for him. I think it was one interesting question that Daniel Popper brought up about the offensive line. Said, hey, look, do you feel good about your line right now? He said, well, the interior line obviously got demolished last year. We have had some shifting. You've added basically, Mekhi Becton, who I think is going to be huge on that. But the way Joe Ortiz responded, he said, hey, I thought we were pretty good last year and we had 11 wins, right, Pop? Kind of thing. Like, we did fine. And Daniel Popper kind of was like, yeah. But obviously, when it mattered most, that's where we showed our weakness. And the thing is, though, with adding Mekhi Becton, I think is going to be massive. Having Joe Alt and Mekhi Becton on that right side is going to be phenomenal. Joe Ortiz did bring up that, hey, look, Zion is being looked at center. Bradley Bozeman's obviously played center. He's played guard. You got, obviously, Andre James is known more of a center, but he has also played guard. It's not a foreign position for him. Trey Pipkins can play up and down the line. You could even throw Jamari Sawyer in that same kind of pool, too. There's a lot of guys that they can move around. He feels good about where this team is today, up and down. So adding these picks is going to be one thing that you could add more talent, add more competition to this team. But once again, it's going to be kind of more of a situation where we'll see where these competitors go, see where they end up finding the right position. I think that they have a good idea that they're going to move forward with one of these guys as a center. If it's going to be Andre James, it's going to be Bradley Bozeman, or it's going to be Zion. they're creating competition. Once again, competitors welcome, guys. And I think that we're going to have a very, very good idea of this team very shortly about where we're going to go with. Now, once again, going back to Hortiz and Chad Alexander's grading, if there's a center that fits well for them, they might go with the center. So just add more competition. Once again, competitors welcome. Now, Joe Hortiz did talk a little bit about deep positions in this draft. He did say, hey, D-line, it's basically defensive tackle and defensive end, running back and cornerback. He did talk about the wide receiver group a little bit later on, which he said is very, very good. He did meet with Tetairoa McMillan and Matthew Golden, both two top wide receiver type guys that there has been a couple times where they have been slated to be able to get picked up at 22 in some of these mock drafts out there. They're getting ready, and they're doing a great job of meeting with the best players out there and making sure their due diligence is done right. Now, if you had Tetairoa McMillan or Matthew Golden, say with Colston Loveland or, I don't know, a great defensive tackle player or whatnot, it's going to be a tough decision. And I would hate to be in that position to decide where you want to go with. You want a skill set player, you want a guy that basically could be the long-term position for a wide receiver or tight end or a great defensive tackle. I'm not sure. But my opinion, I think it's really going to boil down to where do they feel ranked as what position of need is really, really needed at a point when you have four different players that you would love to go with. So my opinion, I think defensive tackle should be a focus with this team. I think you could get actually a very good wide receivers in the second round if you want to do that. Kind of that idea of what we did last year. Joe Alt with a weapon on the O-line who's going to be potentially an all-star type player, all-pro type player, I should say. 2, get a great wide receiver in second round. We hit a home run with Ladd McConkey last year. So it's going to be great to see. I'm excited to be able to see how this draft pans out, but I'd hate to be in his shoes bottom line for this whole entire draft too. So I would also say that he did bring up comp picks. He loves comp picks. He's going to basically look at comp picks all the time. He gets excited for our scouts for the later rounds because those are the deep, deep draft digs on players that could be, great pickups for the Chargers. That's where the scouts get excited, and that's where he gets excited about looking at what these guys can potentially be added to this team. I think that is really, really awesome to be able to see kind of what those guys could bring to the whole entire team this year. So I'm excited to be able to see what happens here. I'm excited to be able to see what we could build. And you just say, hey, last year, what we did, we had a dang home run with, Tarheeb Still and Cam Hart late in the draft. I think it's very, very exciting to be able to see. I think it's Ja'Cory Merritt Krosky, I think is his name, running back from Arizona. Chargers did meet with him. This guy's a stud, and I think he could be a great, great pickup for this team in the long term. We'll see where he lands in this draft, but there's been a lot of hype about him, and I thought he would look really good when he came out as the MVP for the East-West Shrine game. I thought he'd be a great pickup all around. Now, to go and shift just a little bit to Chad Alexander. Chad Alexander did get asked about some of his interviews to be a GM for teams. I think he interviewed with the Raiders and the Jaguars. I swear he was going to get picked up by the Raiders. He had a second interview with them. I thought he was going to get picked up by them. But I think it was kind of a silly move. I think Chad Alexander is going to be a great GM when he does get picked up with whatever team. Bottom line, he's excited to be able to have those type of interviews. And Joe Hortiz even said, hey, look, I don't expect him to be with this team next year. And I'm excited that he's with this team this year. He did talk a little bit about the reason why that we did pick up Taylor Conklin is because Chad Alexander had a lot of insight with him. Now, we've talked about that for a long period of time. Even to say what he said about the drafting process, he leans on his coaches to be able to get insight on players. He leans on players to get insights on a player. He leans on his assistant GM to be able to get insight on a player for free agency. That is a big thing too. These are all resources to be able to allow you to get a better idea of who to pick up and why he would be a fit in the system. And, they talked about Tyler Conklin. They feel good about the tight end position. Maybe it's not going to be a position of need in a choice for this team. But we did meet with like Mason Taylor, Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren. We did meet with those big guys all around. But Bottom line, they picked up Tyler Conklin because of toughness, grit, yards after catch, a system fit, a great locker room guy, and they feel good about the position. So we'll see where it goes and where it lands with the tight end position for the draft. But those are some of the points that I noticed within this interview. And I think it's very exciting to be able to see the draft coming up in here less than a week. I want to hear from you about your thoughts. What are some things that I did miss in this interview that I'd love to be able to hear from you guys in the comments below? But bottom line, I'm excited about this draft, guys. I think it's a big, big draft. It's a big draft to be able to get this Chargers more to a higher competitive team, a team that you could potentially say, hey, look, this could be a Super Bowl caliber ready team. So once again, love to be able to hear from you. Once again, like this video, subscribe to this channel if you've not. Appreciate all the love and support. Once again, James from Bolt Bros. Let's go.
Hey, what's up? Cameron Dick here watching Bolt Bros podcast. Let's go.
Charged up, Bolt Bros on the night.